Welcome back to the show, everybody. Happy end of November, almost December. The holidays are upon us, and we have so many fun things to talk about today. I have with us a third time guest to the You Do Woo podcast, Miss Julie Richards, also known as the Astrological Attorney. She has lots of hats that she wears, and I'll probably put both of our other podcast episodes here in the show notes too, just so people can learn from you. So many fun things. She is a reflector, she is an attorney, she is the crunchy attorney. She gives us so much information. She does zodiacal releasing, which is really freaking cool and magical. So many things. And today we're going to be talking about feminine energy and feminine alchemy. Welcome back again to the show, Julie.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. You're the best, Allison.
Yay. I think you are I mean, there will probably be a few others because I've put some invites out there to guests we've already had on, but I think you're the first one reaching 3 times on the Udubu podcast. But that's
Wow.
also like your reflector nature and all of the different hats that you wear and playing around with your different identities and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I wanted to share a little story. Well, it's not story, I don't know, energy updates, something like that, that a lot of my listeners know I've been going through this year in 2024. And Julie and I just talked about this a little bit before hitting record, but this year has been the most interesting year as far as like goal setting, business, all that kind of stuff. Those who know me, those who have been around since even like 2022, I feel like I was 2022 and 2023, I was just like, I don't know, balls to the wall, creating courses, making a lot of money, all of that kind of stuff. And 2024, it's almost like a lot of that stuff either just wasn't on my heart anymore to do as far as the like go, 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 make things happen, set goals, all that kind of stuff, or just was brought to a halt for, and now I know why, real honestly. Um, I have been teaching about the feminine energy around building your business and making money and all of that. I have the signature course, Feminine Art of Getting Rich. And I've always been really good at applying that idea of feminine energy to my business. But this year it was like God was like, "Okay, I'm going to just pause all this stuff and we're going to create this void and I'm going to force you to start practicing the feminine energy in all the other areas of your life with family and marriage and mothering and parenting, like just in everyday life and being present in romanticizing everyday life, romanticizing motherhood, like all of that kind of stuff." And it's been freaking wild. It has been the most messy yet fulfilling work that I've done. And I'm only like, I mean, I've come far, a long way this year, but I feel like I've only, I don't know, taken the first onion peel layer off and there's 10 more to go kind of deal. So it's really, really interesting. And so this is, I think, really timely for you to come on as I'm like wrapping up this year, this 2024 year of like, I'm turning 41 in a couple of weeks. And I've had 40 years, 41 years of living in my masculine energy in most areas of my life. I started applying feminine energy to my business in 2020, 2021, and that's been great. And then this was the year that I was forced to apply it to all the other areas of my life. And it's wild. It makes me be like, I wish I could rewind to when I was 20 years old and just start being this way, and life would look a lot, it would be a lot easier in a lot of ways. I could have created so much more magic with ease without stressing and all that kind of stuff, but whatever. So, Julie, I wanted to have you on because you have a new school called Feminine Alchemist and a podcast, the Feminine Alchemy podcast, which I freaking love. Everybody knows I love feminine energy. I love the idea of alchemy, which to me is almost like taking every aspect of life and turning it into something more beautiful kind of thing, like turning shit into gold, like that kind of thing. That is what an alchemist does, is like, what's it called? Makes metals into other things, whatever. So what is that? What is feminine alchemy to you? And tell us a little bit of why you created this school right now.
Yeah, so I think that's a beautiful introduction and exactly the reason I created the school and the podcast. To me, feminine alchemy is not being afraid of your darkness, right?
Mm,
Like not being afraid of the deep parts of yourself. And I think that's why we're so afraid of femininity because it doesn't always look pretty. It's not ordered like the masculine is ordered and, perfectly aligned, and we can't always have a perfect, task master or checklist of what we need to do. Femininity and feminine alchemy is feminizing that deeper part of yourself to create that magic, right? To create something greater, diving into the depths so you can rise to the top. And
mm,
that's really like a deep, deep part of the feminine, which I've been experiencing. And this is the season to
mhm,
experience it, right? As we go into winter, diving into ourselves. But the reason that I created the school and the podcast, I do have two co-hosts on my podcast for anyone who listens. They are amazing. They bring their own magic. Kaylee, she is a moon goddess, I will tell you. She's literally knows everything about the moon, everything about every moon phase, like how to connect with it, how to deep dive into that. She's like a double Pisces and like just so watery and lovely. And then Jayanne is all air. So like she brings a lot of that thought, right? She's very thoughtful. And like us, like you and I, she has had a really masculine career. Like she's dealt with in finance her whole life. And also she worked in a science lab, kind of like me, in research for a long time, but has been able to alchemize that and now be able to help people with their energy. So we're all alchemizing that because so many women are so burnt out, right? Like everybody is burnt out. Everybody doesn't know what to do with their time because they're always like in go, go, go. They have no time to connect with themselves. And we have been told for hundreds of years that we need to be exactly like men.
mm,
Women need to be like men. And even our revolution, like the sexual revolution and the feminist movement, although the goals were good, right? Like the goal of trying to help women have more independence and the ability to vote and all of those things, right? Like that's great for to have equal rights, but we've been told for, over 100 years now, you need to be like a man to be worthy, right? To be worthwhile. And we've only praised the masculine energy as worthwhile.
mhm,
And so women are so stuck spinning their wheels trying to figure out, why don't I feel like I have identity and purpose? Why don't I feel, when I've come to the top, when I've gotten everything that I've wanted, why do I still feel so empty inside? And why can't I be just like a man? And we're just being told over and over again, just get rid of your period. No big
mm,
deal. Just put it away. No worries. Who needs a family? You don't need a family. And not that everyone needs to have kids, right? But we all need connection, right?
mhm,
We all need deep connection, and women are creators. And we've been very much like, put away your creativity unless it can help something masculine to come out of it.
mhm,
And so I have been on that journey myself. As people who remember my episodes, right? I'm an attorney. I've been to law school. Before that, I worked in research for over 7 years, doing really masculine things. I know how to do all of that kind of stuff, but it was my journey with my daughter. um she was born my first year of law school. We've talked about that on the podcast a little bit. That really got me into the feminine energy. And I honestly, I don't think I talked about this, but and this is just my own journey. I have always believed, and some people don't believe this, and it's totally okay if you don't believe it, but I have always believed that we have both a father god and a mother god. And that's the way that I was raised. And some people think about the mother god as like the Holy Spirit, like she's the Holy Spirit and she comes to us and she helps us. I would say there's actually biblical evidence for this if you look back to the original translations. We don't have to get into that, but there's actually evidence of a mother god. And I was able to have a deep experience with her. And I was actually able to have a vision of her, and her telling me, I need you to do this. Like, I need you to teach women wisdom. Like, I need you to teach them how to reconnect with me because I've been lost and forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a huge jolt for me because not only am I juggling like these other hats, right? Like, I'm doing like the astrology thing and the lawyer thing. I'm like, okay, well, now here we are. We're pivoting again. But that is part of the feminine, right? It's not that I don't do those other things. Like, you can pivot, right? Like, it's okay to change. Like, it's okay to change your identity, and that's part of the feminine, is that death and rebirth cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I came to be here. Was I was told, okay, it's time to start waking this up in other people and to do it for yourself and to help others connect with that. And so I want to help women connect back to their feminine identity, right? Like, I want them to connect to that feminine pieces of them, to really start to make magic, to really start to see their own beauty and to see what they can give, and that there are actual feminine gifts and skills that everyone has, and to bring mindfulness to your life. And if you do that, like, you will feel, I mean, you will just feel so much more fulfilled and have so many more things come to you. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, that's why I'm doing this.
I love it so much. I love it. Um, I was just thinking back to those of us who were born like in the 80s or 90s. And I think this even applies to people who were born in like the 70s, 60s or 70s, and that were growing up in the 80s or 90s. That was such an intense couple of decades of the feminist movement, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it brought some really good things like equality in being able to get a job or I saw something the other day that was like it's been 50 something years since women were able to like go get mortgages and credit cards, and I'm like, "Wait, was this a positive?" Like I'm not trying to say that. I get it. Everybody should have rights and you shouldn't have to get married to be able to purchase a home, but I don't know, like we were just going through the mortgage approval process and I'm like, is this a positive thing? Do I want a mortgage? Like, oh my
Right,
gosh,
right.
right? Like
Do
this
I
seems
need this
like
debt on
yeah,
me?
it's
Yeah.
like, oh, is this a
Yeah.
fun thing? But that whole idea of like being equal to men, uh, in this book, in The Empowered Wife that I've been reading, there's a quote, I think, from Marilyn Monroe that says, like, if our goal as women is to be equal to men, then we're not using our imagination. Like we're not thinking big enough, right?
Nope.
So
Nope.
like I think, and it's weird because I was raised in a home that was very traditional. My mom was a trad wife, like a stay-at-home mom, didn't
Mhm.
work, took care of us. Like my dad was attorney and worked and provided and all that kind of stuff. And I still became conditioned through our school systems and that whole idea of like schooling and then college and then master's degree and blah blah blah. And I'm talking to an attorney, so there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But
Mhm.
like I thought about this the other day. I was in band in high school, in college, and like that's what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I wanted to go the music route as far as like really my dream job was getting a job as a musician who made scores for movies, right? Not
Mhm.
necessarily being in like the Chicago Symphony or something. That can be sort of a hard gig. But like I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I want to move to LA and be a flutist in, like making music for movies kind of stuff. Like that was what I want to do. And I freaking forgot about that till just like last week. I was like, that's what I wanted to do. I was a very good student. I made good grades. I got really high SAT scores. So I got into the best business school in Texas.
Mhm.
So I went because I was like, well, that's where the money is. And I won't regret that. And nobody, like my parents, I mean, my dad, I think he was like very proud of me getting into this business school. And he was like, oh, you do what you want to do, but like, that's a good business school. And so it was
Mhm.
like this subconscious like idea of like making my family proud and doing the thing that I knew that a paycheck would be attached to. So I went and did that, finance and marketing. And then I was like, okay, well, I love music, so I'll apply this to
Mhm.
apply my business degree to music, which I did for the last 15 some odd years. And that was great. And that was a beautiful way of melding the two. But I'm like, man, my 16-year-old self just wanted to play the flute.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me cry because I'm like, oh, like I know that this ended up being the path, and I learned so many things that I'm going to be able to help a lot of people with, probably, but it makes me think about raising Caroline and like making sure that we say, you do what you like, what will make your heart happy, because
Mm-hmm.
that's your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
It's crazy.
and so many people are living from that, right? Like you just need to look at the culture. The culture has programmed all of us, right? That this is the way we need to do things, right? Just do it, go do it, make it happen. And there's so many, it's interesting because we have like whitewashed, femininity out of everything,
Hmm.
you know? And to be a woman, all the women we see, all the models, right, these powerful like women, they're all very so masculine, right? That's what makes them so cool. Oh, I can defeat 100 bad guys by killing them and jumping up and doing all this stuff. Oh, I'm so great because I'm in charge of all of these people and I push them around, and because I'm snipey. We don't have any models of what the feminine looks like.
Hmm.
What does it look like? And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this, because I want women to know, what does the feminine look like in a power position? What is that for you? What is that more? If we don't need to be equal to men, right? We far surpass. We're in our own net lane, right? Like we
Hmm.
don't need to compete anymore. Like
Hmm.
let go of that, right? We're not competing with them, and we don't need to do all their jobs either.
Hmm.
Like we don't need to take all their jobs from them.
Hmm.
We don't need to take on everything. And every woman I know is just doing a million jobs and resentful of her husband because they're not doing anything. And I think we need to move beyond that. It's time to move beyond that. And so for me, a lot of the feminine, I think it comes to this question of like, what even is the feminine? Like,
Hmm.
I think a lot of women have that like question, like, what even is it? Right?
Hmm.
Like, what is it? And that's where we need to start, is what is it? And we can look, because we don't have any models, we need to go back further, and we need to look at some of our ancient archetypes of what the feminine is, right? And some of those are things that you would think of very easily, like the moon and the ocean, right? Those are archetypes. We can look at goddesses like Inanna and go back that route. But we also, there are also ones that we're not ready to embrace, we're scared of. Like the snake is a very
Hmm.
feminine symbol, and people like freak out about that, right? Because like the snake is also Satan and the
Hmm.
devil, right? And ambitious and all these things. But if you go back further than even the Bible, right? We see the snake as a symbol of death and rebirth,
Hmm.
right? Shedding its skin, and the ability of a snake to move and to change and to learn. And also the snake as a symbol of being able to say enough is enough, right? Which is part of the feminine, that we have to know when enough is enough.
Hmm.
We can also talk about things like mushrooms are a symbol of the feminine, but people didn't know that, right?
Hmm.
But mushrooms have, these mycelium networks, and they're able to communicate, and they're able to make these amazing communities, and they're able to talk to each other, and they help everything grow, right? And they also symbolize death and rebirth, which is a really big part of the feminine, right? It's that going down into the depths and knowing yourself at this really deep level, and letting the parts of you decompose that need to be decomposed,
Hmm.
and then turning all that decomposition into gold, into new life, into beauty, right? That is all part of the feminine. And we need to be able to see that, just like we look at the moon, right? And we see that the moon, she shifts, she changes, but that shift and change is always, it has this beautiful repetition, right? We can always count on it. It's consistent. Even though it's changing, the change is consistent. And that is, part of femininity. We are always changing, we are always metamorphosizing, but it's this very beautiful, consistent rhythm. And I think if women were willing to get into these rhythms and embrace that cycle, because how many people are like, ew, a period, gross. Don't talk
Hmm.
to me about that. Blood, blah, blah. Ugh, it just like makes me so mad. But
Hmm.
like, if we were willing to embrace that, wow, how beautiful would this world be? If we were allowed ourselves to have space to work through these cycles and to be in this feminine power of the rhythm.
Hmm. I love that so much. Two of the books that I read this year in leaning into my feminine energy in non-work ways was Kelly Brogan's book, The Reclaimed Woman, and then Mama Gina's book, Pussy. Oh my God.
Mm,
Like what? Highly recommend both of those. But I do think that even after, diving into resources like that, it's almost like you need a place, a container
mm-hmm,
with other women to go put it into daily practice. It's not just like I'm going to read this and do it. That was what I have had a hard time with in implementing these. Like, I can't really do it alone. Do you know what I
mm-hmm,
mean?
mm-hmm,
So for like some of the empowered wife stuff, I have a text thread with a couple of other friends, and we keep each other accountable for that,
mm-hmm.
that work in our marriage. But yeah, what can people who are interested in joining Feminine Alchemy, how often do y'all meet? What topics do you cover? What kind of support can they expect to have? And is there any prerequisites? Like, do you require any like reading those books or anything like that
Mm-hmm.
to join?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, with Feminine Alchemist, right? It's exactly that. It's meant to be that container to help women. And so, what it is it's a yearly membership that people can join, right? And when you join it, you get all the content that we have. So you get tons of courses. We're going to have monthly meetings, live meetings with experts that will come to support, but we also have a great community. And we're going to have this community where people can talk to each other. We'll be doing monthly challenges with each other, keeping each other, accountable in those ways. And you get support from Kaylee and I, working through what we will, as far as like this cyclical living piece, like we will be working with the moon in
Mhm.
all 8 phases, right? We talk about 4 phases often, but there are actually 8 phases. And so we'll be working with the moon with these 8 phases and helping you apply them. So like we'll be sending out the journaling prompts, and we'll be doing live calls weekly so that you can have that, connection and connect to the other members of the program. Of course, you'll always be able to connect with them through, our community feature where you can talk and chat, and we'll be posting things for people to be able to do. But if you want to join it, there's no prerequisites, right? Like, you can have as little knowledge about this or as much as you would like. And you just need to, right now, we're about to open our big grand opening will be December 21st, if on Yule, if people
Yeah.
want to, yeah, get in and do that. But like it's important to get out on the wait list now if you want to be part of that. And we'll send you all the updates if you are on the wait list and how we're opening it. But things we talk about, this is like the juicy stuff. I love talking about it. So we'll be talking about amazing things like rites of passage. Like, how
Mhm.
do you celebrate the rites of passage in your life, right? How can you take back your menarche, which is your first bleed? So I bet
Mhm.
there's women listening to this that didn't know that like your first bleed had a name, but it's called menarche,
Mhm.
right? And like the other end is called menopause, right? And we're starting these menses, this monthly cycle. And like how if you had an experience like many women might have had of like shame or of, like don't talk to me about that, or like just like shuffle in the corner, let me show you how to use a tampon kind of a thing. We're going to be talking about like how do you reclaim that? How do you not do that for your own daughters or people around you? How do you celebrate that? But how do we celebrate also like the other rites of passages that we have, which could be your first sexual experience? That's a rite of passage for women, right? It can be birth. That's a rite of passage for women, postpartum care. There are all these rites of passages that we have in our life that we're not putting any focus on right now. And so we will be talking about that. Obviously, we will be talking about moon phases, how to use the moon phases, what to do for those. We focus a lot on practical skills and rituals. And if ritual is a scary word for you, anyone listening, just so you know, like a ritual is just something that we do repeatedly to put attention on it, to
Mhm.
show the actual importance of it, right? It's not something scary like you have to like rub blood on yourself or like
Mhm.
run naked out under the This guy, like, no, no, no. Like, ceremony and ritual can just be helpful for bringing attention to things in our lives. And most of the time, these things that we'll be teaching are super simple things to bring mindfulness to your life, more mindfulness, and help people understand them. So we'll be talking about those lovely rites of passages, talking about the moon, how to use the moon. We will also be talking about astrology and the feminine side of astrology. How do you use astrology to tap into your femininity? We'll be talking about things like sacred rage. What is sacred rage as a woman? How does that play into your life? We'll be talking about femininity in relationships. We'll be talking about entrepreneurship and femininity. We'll be talking about like priestesshood. Like, what is priestesshood? Are you the priestess of your home?
Mhm.
And how do you do that? How do you create sacred spaces? We're talking about the skills and the wisdoms of the feminine, the history of, femininity archetypes, and how you pull out what it is and how to access your own sacred power. So that's just like a little sampling.
I love it. Oh my gosh, it is so needed right now. I keep reiterating this over and over. Everybody in my world knows about this shift in evolution that's going on, the new paradigm that we're walking toward and all of that kind of stuff. Part of that is it's all beautiful, but part of it is a little bit scary only because however long you've been alive, we've been placing our safety and security in certain structures that
Mm-hmm.
are gonna be crumbling now, right? And it might not happen all overnight, all at once, but we're already seeing a lot of those things happen where it's like, okay, my social security is not going to be there anymore. I literally got a letter from them saying it's going to be done in 2025 or 2026 or something, like
Mm-hmm.
legit. So the money that's sitting there, I'm never going to see at all. And that's just like one tiny thing. So many things that we place that we're like, oh, the government's got me. Blah blah blah's got me. Blah blah blah's got me. It's going to be okay. Things are just going to keep going the way they've gone the past 50 years or 100 years or 500 years, like whatever. That's not going to be the case. And so many of us already are knowing that and feeling that. And we've already started tapping into these communities, whether it be online ones like the Feminine Alchemist or in real life communities, which I've started creating here in my town. But this as all of the external systems and structures that create this false sense of safety for us humans, as they begin to slowly erode and crumble, we are going to need to create our own structures of safety. And that can be community. For now, I think that's just like a necessity. It's truly a necessity. Um, and you have to find the one that feels correct for you. And I'm going to put all of your information in the link in the show notes so you guys go check it out too, because she's opening the doors here in another month or so. But you have to go find those places now of safe spaces for you to be able to chat through your freakouts and your worries and your rage and your fear and all of that kind of stuff. Because as the external world gets more and more and more chaotic, we need these little places of refuge to talk about everything that's going on externally and provide senses of actual safety and connection and not have the isolation stuff that's going on, right? And I love these podcasts and they're beautiful and they're magical and they do so much. But just listening to somebody talk is not the same as being in community and you talking and you connecting with other people. It's just not the same. Do both, like honestly. Um, so I know that we always talk about, I bring people on here and we talk about different memberships or offerings or group containers or whatever. Y'all pick one and join one. Like you have to, like you really, really have to. So go start researching the different ones that we've been talking about and find your tribe and like give it your all as far as like really forming connections and community and practicing being your authentic self and using your voice and speaking up and talking about stuff that's hard. In these spaces, it's very safe to do that. Whereas sometimes it's not in the outside world. So yeah, don't you, I mean, let me know your thoughts on that. But I know that's why you created this group, this school in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's so important. We're coming to this space where and I wanted to say, something that women do is we create community, right? That's like a very important part of the feminine, just like those mycelium networks, right? Where we are connectors. And also, we're weavers of time and space, right? Like we create time and space with our bodies. And I know you talk about time bending and things like that. But if you feel akin to anything I'm doing or what anyone is doing, I think having a community is going to be the way to go, right? Like that is going to be the future is coming together in community. And if you want a place where you can really try out this cyclical living and touching into like what is your feminine power, then hopefully this is the place for you.
Yay. This has been such a fun conversation. And I know that, with all the things that we were talking about as far as structures crumbling or eroding or whatever, whenever I talk about any of this stuff and the new paradigm stuff and the shifts, it is not out of a place of fear. Like all this stuff needs to happen. And the cool thing about structures that are false safety going away is that we have to lean into our feminine even more to be like, okay, I'm going to trust that I am going to find a new sense of safety and one that's actually lasting, that's not going to crumble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really think so many people now are going to be people who have like gone away from God are going to be coming back to God. People
Mm-hmm.
who have gone maybe more extreme in the fundamentalist, like, I just want some priest to tell me what to do or to, like, make me feel like a clean person again or whatever. They're going to be like coming more to the spiritual side. And we're all going to be like meeting in the middle, which is going to be really beautiful. And everybody's going to be going internally to seek out what's best for them and not just
Yeah.
follow the rules that everybody else is doing. But like you said, like that's the feminine, that intuition, that going within, that getting quiet, that being taken care of, knowing that you're going to be taken care of and having faith and trust. We have to go first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and our kids need to see us do this, and our husbands need to see us doing this. And it's fucking really hard work. And you need you need people to help you do it.
True. It's very, very true. And yeah, I hope people don't feel scared. It's not a time to feel scared. It's a time to feel even more alive, right? Like that's the whole point. Like you are finding your own North Star. You're going within to find what actually really works for you. And I think everyone, no matter who is listening to this, needs to tap into that feminine side of themselves to find that for them. And we are scared of going into the deep, but it's only there that we find our true self, right? That we find the key to our souls and we're able to clear out everything that we don't need, that's not serving us, so that we can receive more of what we really want. So don't be scared, just tap in, jump
Yeah.
in.
Oh my gosh. Okay, in the show notes, I'm gonna share your Instagram, the link to your school, and also to your podcast. And you guys make sure you subscribe to Julie's podcast with her two co-hosts and be on the lookout because I'm coming on to talk about human design and feminine energy and all of that kind of stuff in a few weeks from now. It's really, really, really good. So yeah. Thank you so much, Julie, for coming on the show again. I always appreciate your reflector wisdom and making our tribe feel so good. I appreciate you.
You're welcome anytime.
Thanks. See y'all next week.